I never expected to wake up to flashing, red and blue lights reflecting off the calm water outside my floating boathouse. But that morning, as I stepped out onto the deck with a mug of coffee in my hand, I saw 2 police officers, a county inspector, and Karen, arms crossed, chin raised, victory already painted across her face like she'd won a war. I didn't even know we were fighting. "Sir," one officer called out, "we received a report of an illegal dwelling on this property. We need to inspect the structure immediately." My coffee nearly slipped from my hand. Illegal dwelling? My boathouse, place my grandfather built with his own 2 hands, had been floating peacefully on this lake for 72 years without a single complaint. Everyone in town knew its story. Everyone respected its history. Everyone, except Karen. She lived 3 docks down, and in the 6 months since she moved in, she'd appointed herself self-declared guardian of the neighborhood's proper standards. She patrolled the docks like she owned the water. She complained about fishing, lines being too close. She reported kids for unsafe splashing. She told retirees their deck chairs violated visual harmony. But reporting my boathouse? That was a whole new level. I walked toward the officers, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is a historic structure. It was registered decades ago." "Whatever she told you," Karen cut me off with a sharp flick of her hand. "I don't care how old it is. It's still an occupied structure without proper permits. He's living out here illegally, and it's affecting the property values of this community." The inspector opened his clipboard. "Sir, we'll need to take a full look inside. If this structure is being used as a residence without authorization, it will have to be removed." Removed. The words slammed into me like a sudden drop in the water. My grandfather's legacy. The summers I spent learning to fish on its deck. The old wood that creaked like it was telling stories. The boat engine he rebuilt piece by piece right in that tiny workshop room. Karen stood there smirking like she'd already won the battle. Like my family history meant nothing to her, but she had no idea what she'd just stepped into. She didn't know the truth behind the boathouse. The papers. The registry. The historical designation locked away in an old file box. And she definitely didn't know the one detail that would blow this entire situation apart and turn the investigation right back on her. The inspector stepped onto the narrow dock, his boots thudding softly against the old wooden planks as Karen hovered behind him like a shadow. Her smirk grew wider with every step he took toward my boathouse, like she could already taste the victory. I forced myself to stay calm, though my pulse thudded in my ears louder than the water slapping against the hull. Inside, the inspector scanned everything. The exposed beams, the tiny kitchen, the nautical charts pinned to the wall, while jotting down notes on his clipboard. "You're definitely living in here," he said quietly, almost sympathetically, like he already knew where this was going. "Do you have any documents authorizing this as a residential structure?" I took a slow breath. "Not exactly in the way you mean, but this isn't just a residence. It's a registered historic property." Karen let out a short, dramatic laugh that echoed like a seagull. "Historic? This? It's a floating shack. A rusty old hazard. There's no way this pile of driftwood has any legal protections." I ignored her and reached under the bench seat built into the wall. My grandfather had always kept important things hidden in practical places, never locked, just tucked away where only family knew to look. My fingers brushed against the old metal box, cold and dusty. I pulled it out and set it on the table. The inspector raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Proof," I said. The hinges squeaked as I opened it. Inside were folded blueprints, yellowed with age. Black and white photographs of my grandfather building the place, and most importantly, a thick envelope containing the state's historical designation documents. Karen stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "This doesn't mean anything. Anyone can print papers and pretend they're official." "These aren't printed," I said calmly. "They're originals." The inspector lifted the documents, scanning the embossed stamp, the signatures, the official state seal. His posture shifted. Suddenly he wasn't looking for violations. He was verifying authenticity. And the more he read, the more his expression changed, tightening in a way that made Karen visibly nervous. "This property," he said slowly, "is listed as part of the State Historic Marine Registry." Karen blinked. "The what?" He flipped another page. "It means the boathouse isn't just legal. It's protected. No one, not the HOA, not the county, not a private resident, can request removal or force modifications." Karen's jaw dropped. But I wasn't done. "There's something else you should know," I said, sliding one more document forward, because buried in that envelope was a detail Karen never expected, one that connected directly to her and would flip this entire confrontation upside down. Karen stared at the final document I slid across the table, her confidence draining faster than water through a cracked hull. The inspector adjusted his glasses and lifted the page, reading the header aloud. Protected historical waterway, boundaries, restrictions and ownership rights. His eyes moved down the text, then widened slightly as he reached the highlighted section I'd marked years ago. What is that supposed to prove? Karen snapped, her voice sharp with panic disguised as indignation. The inspector cleared his throat. It states that all properties within 100 feet of this historic structure, land or water, must comply with preservation guidelines. That includes architectural changes, dock modifications. He paused. And any new construction. Karen froze. I leaned back, arms crossed, the tide finally turning. Your new dock extension? The one you built last month without permits? The one you bragged would give you the biggest shoreline view on the entire lake? She blanched. That has nothing to do with this old boat shed. It has everything to do with it, I said. You built your expansion inside the restricted preservation zone. That means your dock, not my boathouse, is the illegal structure here. The inspector flipped another page. He's correct. Any construction inside this zone requires approval from the state Historical Preservation Office. He looked up. Did you file for that? Karen's mouth opened, then closed. She looked like a fish gasping on a pier. I didn't know. That's funny, I said. You seem to know every rule when you're reporting everyone else. Her face turned blotchy red. This is ridiculous. I was just trying to keep the neighborhood safe and— Ma'am, the inspector cut in gently but firmly. You filed a false report. And you're in violation of state preservation law. Your dock may need to be reduced or fully removed. Karen shot a desperate look at the officers, but they only shifted uncomfortably. This was out of their hands now. She backed away from the table, shaking her head like the world had suddenly flipped upside down. This isn't fair, she whispered. I didn't know. I didn't know any of this. I met her eyes, not to gloat, but to make something very clear. You could have asked. You could have talked to me instead of trying to take something from my family. Instead, you went straight to reporting and accusing. And now the rules you tried to use against me? They're the rules protecting me from you. The inspector closed the folder and exhaled. We'll need to schedule a formal review. For now, the boathouse stays. Karen stared at the floor, stunned. The inspector and officers stepped back onto the dock, leaving Karen standing inside my boathouse. Her face pale, her confidence completely washed away. The afternoon sun streamed through the old windows, casting long beams of gold across the wooden floor, light that made the historic place feel almost alive. Like my grandfather himself was watching this unfold with a satisfied grin. I followed them outside, hearing Karen's hesitant footsteps behind me. When we reached the edge of the dock, the inspector faced her directly. Ma'am, I'll prepare the official notice regarding your dock extension. You'll receive a letter from the State Historical Preservation Office outlining the required steps. Until then, no further construction or modifications are allowed. Karen pressed her lips into a tight line. So what happens now? I stepped forward, my tone calm but firm. What happens is simple. My boathouse stays. It's protected, it's legal, and it's part of this lake's history. Something you never cared to understand. She looked away, eyes glistening. I didn't mean to cause— Karen, I interrupted softly. You meant exactly what you did. But maybe now you see that not everything is about rules you make up or control. You think you have. I gestured toward the lake. This place existed long before you moved here, and it'll be here long after both of us are gone. For the first time since she arrived months ago, Karen looked truly small. Not angry, not righteous, just humbled. I didn't know about the preservation zone, she murmured. If I had, I wouldn't have built the extension. That's the thing, I replied. You didn't look. You didn't ask. You just judged. The inspector nodded. The review will take a few weeks, but based on the documents, there's no question. This boathouse is historically protected. In fact, he turned to me with a faint smile. You might consider applying for a small state grant. Properties like this qualify for maintenance funds. Karen blinked. He gets money? For this? I shrugged. Looks that way. The officers stepped back onto their boat, engines rumbling softly before they pulled away from the dock. The inspector followed soon after, leaving just Karen and me standing by the water. She finally looked up. I'll remove the extension if that's what the state decides. That's what the law requires, I said simply. Karen nodded, defeated. I won't file any more complaints. I offered a small, respectful nod. Then maybe we can move forward. As she walked away, the lake shimmered in the late afternoon light. The old boathouse rocking gently beside me, unchanged, unbroken, and protected, just as my grandfather intended. If you loved watching me take on Karen and protect my boathouse, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment below telling me what you'd do if you were in my shoes.